Hey everyone, my name is Wes, and welcome back to another episode of Terror Talk where I discuss creepy clips online. I created this original horror music to add to the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to leave your own comments, and when you're done watching, check the description if you'd like to listen to my music without the commentary. Now let's get into it and have some fun.
I was 16. I lived in a small home with my parents at the time, sort of on the outskirts of the city. It was in a smaller, wooded neighborhood, about an hour outside of the main city area where both of my parents worked. This was on a regular weekday. It was pretty cloudy and rainy all day, and everyone was talking about this big storm that was supposedly rolling in later tonight. I didn't care too much, so long as I didn't have to walk home in it. Thankfully, it waited until school was out and for me to get home before the rain started picking up. Usually, these storms are over exaggerated, but as I watched TV in the living room with the windows open, the clouds got darker and darker. Then the rain got a lot worse. But honestly, the most unsettling thing was the wind. Our small, old, and basically wooden house was creaking and swaying as the wind slammed against it and rain crashed against the roof.
Don't you hate the wind? I personally cannot stand the wind, and when you're in a creepy situation like this where it's being very disruptive of your home during like a very violent thunderstorm. Like, isn't that just the worst? Like, I recently went to a beach house, kind of off topic, but it is a little on topic since it was really creepy at first. I heard this whistling, like echoing through the house, and it literally almost sounded like a ghost, but it just ended up being the wind from the ocean that was coming in through the beach and through that beach house, but it literally sounded like a ghost. It was like super creepy at first, I'm not gonna lie. And that just kind of reminds me of what's happening here with this story. But yeah, let me know if you have any creepy experiences like that with the wind or just with thunderstorms in general. Let me know in the comments below.
Regardless, I was sure everything was good and kind of just listened to the storm as I watched TV and waited for my parents to get home. At about 5:30 though, my phone alarm suddenly screamed at me about a flash flood warning. Not too much later, my mom called. She said a bunch of the roads on the way home were apparently flooded over, that it was too dangerous for them to drive in, so they'd have to wait it out. I said I was good here, and the house seemed to be holding up, so it wasn't a big deal. Now knowing that my parents were stuck in the city, I got up and found something to eat in the kitchen. As I waited for my meal to heat up in the microwave, I thought I heard something that sounded like a knock, like something knocking on wood. It was so muffled by all the rain and wind that it was hard to tell. And I thought if it was anything, it was probably just something the wind was smacking against the house. So I ignored it. I grabbed my food and moved back over to the couch to watch TV. But before I could even start eating, I heard it again. This time, it kind of freaked me out because it sounded like it was at the front door, which was pretty much right next to me. And it was the exact same knocking pattern as the one I thought I'd heard when I was in the kitchen.
Yeah, I would be freaked out too at this point, wouldn't you? Because there is a massive thunderstorm going on, and who would be at the door during a time like this? And when it comes to stories like this, whenever you hear a knock late at night or during a thunderstorm or something like that, it is never a good sign. Is it? Like, I would be so scared to go open that door, wouldn't you? I don't think I could bring myself to do it because nothing ever good comes from a knock either late at night or during a bad thunderstorm.
Obviously, this made me think it had to be a person. But outside, in this storm, that really didn't make any sense. I was too scared for a minute to even check out the door, so I kind of just sat frozen on the couch and waited for something to happen. But when nothing did, I finally got up and went over to check out the door. I walked up to the door and looked out the peephole. It was mostly fogged over. All I could see were the blurry shapes of heavy rain pouring down. I looked out there for a while, making sure I didn't see any figures move or something. But with no signs of anything, I felt safe opening the door. At first, I was relieved. Nobody was there. It was just the monstrous storm outside. But then I noticed something weird. In the mud coming up to the porch, there were footsteps. I couldn't actually make out the shoe print or anything, but it was clear by the repeating pattern through the mud that they were definitely footsteps. And given the weather, they had to be recent to not have been washed away already. I felt a chill run through my body before I abruptly closed the door. I was really freaked out and really didn't know what to do. The rational side of me wanted to call my parents, or maybe even the police, because this was really strange with the massive storm going on, and for me being alone. But the other side of me didn't want to worry anyone over something that was hopefully nothing. I mean, they weren't on the porch, so they must have already left. At least that was my thought process. I stayed more alert, but refrained from calling anyone yet.
I don't know if I would have taken that approach because clearly something was wrong. I mean, who would be at your even porch, even if they didn't get up onto the porch, but didn't they hear them knocking at the door? That's what I thought. Like, yeah, it just doesn't really make sense or add up, does it? Like, why would they be at the porch in the storm in the first place? So I don't think it's really that great of her to let her guard down too much in this situation because something is still definitely off.
I told myself if I saw or heard anything else, though, I'd call. I went back to the couch and ate my dinner, keeping the TV volume a bit lower so I could listen to the storm. Honestly, I don't remember much else from that part of the night, because at some point I just laid down and passed out, waiting for my parents to get home. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't sure why I'd woken up, but the whole house was dark, and the storm was just as loud as it was earlier. I knew a while had passed, though, and I was curious how I'd been able to sleep so long without my parents coming home and waking me up. I picked up my phone and checked the time, but immediately saw I had multiple missed calls and unopened texts from my parents. They were just asking if I was okay and said the roads were still too bad to drive in and they had to get a hotel in the city for the night. I rubbed my eyes and sat up, not really processing any of the texts I read and just trying to wake up still. And then I heard probably the most terrifying sound I could have heard in that moment. It was a single footstep on the wooden floor right above me. Not something hitting the house or wind making the house creak. It was unmistakably a footstep inside the house, specifically in my bedroom, which was the room directly above me. My heart started racing as I listened for another few seconds. I followed the sound of the footsteps, staring at the ceiling as they slowly moved through my room. Then they started going toward the door into the upstairs hallway. I knew I had to act fast. I turned my phone on silent and quietly ran into the small downstairs bathroom in the main hallway, keeping the lights off and carefully closing the door behind me and locking it. I don't think they heard me. I opened my phone and turned the brightness on the lowest setting as I called 911. It was pitch black in there, aside from the dim phone screen. Once I saw that the call timer had started, meaning an operator answered, I whispered my name, my address, and what was happening, then went back to staying quiet while keeping the call going. I was afraid to even put my phone on the quietest volume to let me hear the operator, especially as I began hearing the footsteps making their way down the stairs. The low thumps slowly moved through the hallway, rain and wind filling the sound between each step. They walked right past the bathroom door. They kept on until they got to the kitchen, and then a few seconds passed as I waited for the next footstep, and then a few more seconds passed. Before I knew it, I was just waiting for any more sounds or for them to move, but I didn't hear anything. Several long, agonizing minutes passed until a sudden bang at the front door sounded and police called out. I ran out of the bathroom and opened the door, but it was apparent by the lack of any other sounds inside the house that the intruder was gone. The sliding back door was cracked open, leaving the eerie evidence of their absence. Likely, the sound of them breaking inside was drowned out by the heavy storm, keeping me asleep. However, that could actually be the reason that I'm still here today. Whoever the intruder was seemed to only go through the hallway, upstairs, and into my bedroom. So me staying asleep on the couch and not making myself known was probably for the best. Disturbingly though, it seems clear that they were looking for me. What's really unnerving to think about, even today, years later, is that I never saw the person. So I literally know nothing about them, whether they're a man or woman, teenager or adult, someone I knew, or someone I didn't know. Or worse, someone that I didn't know, but that knew me. Me and my parents have been pretty on edge for the last few years, hoping whoever it was doesn't attempt to come back to continue whatever they had planned for that night.
Yeah, I always say that an intruder and a break-in is one of the scariest things that could happen to you because, I don't know, I live in a pretty safe suburban neighborhood, but that doesn't mean anything couldn't happen, anything could happen. And I always keep my doors locked no matter what because I'm not taking any chances with that. And I think it's really smart that she went into the bathroom and made sure the light was off and dimmed her phone. I thought that was a really smart thing to do in that situation. Would you be able to think clearly in a situation like that? Let me know in the comments below if you would be able to think clearly in that kind of situation because I don't know. I've never been in a situation like that before, so it's hard for me to say whether I would be able to think clearly or I'd just be freaking the hell out and just panicking like crazy because it is really definitely really terrifying to deal with something like a break-in and an intruder. But overall, I thought this was a creepy story, and I hope you enjoyed my commentary and the music, and I will see you in the next video.